Who was entering my house when I left for work at night? Arthur was an ordinary man. Most of the time, he seemed invisible. No one on the street would turn to look at him on his way to work, and no one at the office would speak to him. His life appeared quiet and dull to others, but Arthur never complained. He was someone who cherished silence. He had a routine life. He would prepare to leave for work at the same time every night, take the same bus, do his shopping at the same store in the evening, and then retreat to his home. His home was his sanctuary. The chaos and crowd outside were exhausting, but the order inside his home was deeply comforting. Everything in Arthur's home had its place. From the pen on the desk to the small coasters on the living room table, everything was orderly. He had no tolerance for dust. After eating, he would immediately clean the dishes. Even if the edge of the carpet curled slightly, he could not sit until it was straightened. Order and cleanliness were for him synonymous with peace, but peace could be shattered at the most unexpected moment. One morning, when he returned home from work, a strange, heavy smell hit him the moment he opened the door. At first, he didn't think much of it. He was accustomed to strange odors in the apartment building. But when he stepped into the living room, the smell remained. By the time he entered the kitchen, it had grown sharper, a pungent odor that burned his throat and made his stomach churn. Arthur grimaced. He checked the trash. It was nearly empty. There were no dishes in the sink. The kitchen even seemed freshly cleaned, yet the smell somehow seemed to seep from the walls. Maybe it's coming from the pipes, he thought. The accumulated filth. Its stench is disgusting. He tried to convince himself. He prepared dinner quickly, but his appetite was gone. The sharp smell invading his nose made swallowing each bite a struggle. He left his meal unfinished and went to bed early. But sleep did not come easily. In the darkness, he felt as if someone were moving around the room. Whenever he closed his eyes, the smell struck his nose more intensely. Suddenly, he woke up startled in the middle of the night. His chest heaved rapidly. He looked at the corner of the room. There was nothing, but the pressure on his chest, the feeling of someone being there. It was real. He checked the time, 3:12 a.m. He tried to fall asleep again without turning on the light, but he struggled until dawn. The next day, the same smell greeted him when he returned from work. This time, it was stronger, sharper. The smell clung to him as he entered the kitchen, choking his lungs. He emptied the trash. He opened and closed the cupboards, but could not find the source. A growing unease took hold of him. On the third morning, Arthur froze as he entered his home. The bread knife on the kitchen counter was bright red. Fresh blood still dripped from it. Arthur's heart felt as if it would burst from his chest. His breath grew heavy. He stared at the knife for a few seconds. In his own kitchen with his own knife covered in blood. Terrified, he stepped forward and turned on the faucet. His hands trembled as he washed the knife. The red streaks swirled in the water, and he tried to look away, his stomach churning. When the knife was finally clean, his hands were still shaking. He wrapped the knife in a bag and hurriedly threw it in the trash. The neighbors did not open their doors. No one witnessed his panic. But something had shifted inside Arthur. That day, he could not sleep. He kept listening to the house. If he heard the slightest creak, he would leap from bed and turn on the lights. But there was nothing. Exhaustion weighed down his eyelids, and yet even his own shadow made him startle awake. As days passed, the events grew stranger. Arthur cleaned his home every morning and went to work, only to return to new scenes each evening. One day, there were brown stains on the table. The next day, he noticed strange scratches on the wall. Another day, Long black hairs appeared in the sink. Arthur's own hair was short and blonde. Each evening, the stench grew stronger. Sometimes it was as if a rotting animal had appeared in the kitchen, making his stomach churn. Sometimes it lingered in the living room, sometimes in the bedroom. Arthur tried opening all the windows, but it didn't help. The smell seemed to have settled into the house. Arthur began doubting himself. Maybe I am doing this, he thought. Perhaps I get up in my sleep and ruin everything. But an inner voice rejected that thought. Some details were just too much. One morning, he made a decision. He would set up a camera in his home. Perhaps he was truly losing his mind, or perhaps someone really was entering his house. Both possibilities were terrifying, but not knowing was worse. He placed a small camera in the corner of the living room. As the red light blinked, he felt a slight sense of relief. I will know the truth now, he told himself. That night, he lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, wrestling with the questions spinning in his mind. He went to work at night, unable to stop thinking about the camera. As soon as he returned home, he rushed to the device. He removed the memory card and inserted it into his computer. The first few hours of footage were mundane. An empty room, silence. Arthur fast-forwarded with growing anxiety. Then, as the clock approached 2 a.m., a movement appeared on screen. Arthur's breath caught. The door slowly opened. A tall, slender man entered. He wore black clothing. His face was not clearly visible on the camera, as if shrouded in darkness. From his arms, he dragged a human body. Arthur froze in his chair. The man dragged the lifeless form into the kitchen. The camera did not fully show it, but sounds could be heard. Metal scraping, muffled breaths, knife noises. When the man finished, he raised his head and looked directly at the camera. Arthur instinctively leaned back. That gaze seemed to pierce the screen and reach his eyes. Then the man slowly stood and turned toward the living room. Arthur held his breath. The man looked at the camera once more and then walked toward the cupboard in the corner of the room. He opened the cupboard door and stepped inside, closing it behind him. The recording ended there. Arthur's heart pounded as he stared blankly at the computer screen. One word echoed in his mind. Cupboard. He slowly turned his head. The cupboard in the corner of the room sat silently. His eyes widened with fear. Hands trembling, he gripped the edge of the chair, breathing rapidly. At that moment, the cupboard door creaked open, inch by inch. A muffled breath came from inside. Then, thin, long, bloodied fingers grasped the edge of the door. Arthur wanted to scream, but no sound emerged. He tried to swallow, but his throat was locked. He stared, frozen like a statue. The cupboard door slowly opened. The man who emerged this time did not hide his face. Pale, decayed-looking skin, jet-black, empty eyes, a sinister half-smile. Arthur tried to rise from his chair, but his legs betrayed him. His knees shook, his breath caught. The man silently walked behind him. Arthur was still watching the footage on the computer screen. There, on the screen, he saw himself, sitting in the same chair, trembling and watching. Behind him, the muffled breath sounded one last time. Then the screen went black. Arthur never went back to work again.